Thank you for joining me on NRL Fans WA.
How you going, James? Good to see you.
Thank you for joining me, mate. I really appreciate you giving me your time, especially being assistant coach of the Bulldogs at the moment. You this morning you're a pretty busy man doing some video and going out to the SG ball game. So appreciate you giving me your time this late on an evening.
That's okay. That's okay. I've still got a little bit more to do actually, and early start. It just never ends. It's a big cycle, but I enjoy doing it. So it's not like a job really. You sort of probably a little like yourself, a fan, but love the game.
Yeah, and I think the coaching job just doesn't stop, does it, mate? It doesn't matter what part of the coaching role you're in, it just doesn't stop, especially with the way everything is these days, how critical everyone is and the little details. It's a hell of a job.
It is. Being a head coach is way harder than being an assistant coach, and there's so many more facets in that area. And just being an assistant and a reserve grade coach, it's certainly a lot less pressure than having all those other things and all those other people and aspects of the job. You don't have to worry about them.
Well, congratulations, you guys, for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs on their first win yesterday in the NRL. Smashed the Titans out of the park. So well done to you guys on that one. That must have been a bit of a relief for you guys.
Well, I think it was relief and a fair bit of joy, I think, and I think the fans were pretty happy, and I know the head coach was happy about the 0 for the Titans, because he's very focused on the defence, and they did a great job, and the coaching staff all round I thought helped add to what we were doing, and it resulted in 30 odd points to 0, which is great for the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives those players that bit of relief now. I think, everyone's criticism of the Bulldogs looking into this year has been the lack of size and lack of power through the forwards. But, in coming up against the Titans, who have got some pretty big and named front rowers and second rowers, to put 38-0 on them, it's a hell of an effort.
Yeah, it was. And I thought our guys did very well, and they didn't stop. They didn't just rest on their laurels. Once they got to a lead, they really pressed them and forced a few things against the Titans, and it was great to watch. And just sitting as a spectator / coach, it's really good when you're on the winning side, and we've had plenty of experience on the other side.
Yeah, the last couple of years hasn't been the best for the Bulldogs, but the recruitment-wise, it's going really well. So hopefully in the next, couple of years, you start to get back up to that really the real pointy end of the game. We've seen with Penrith, they went through their lump, down the bottom sort of the table, and they recruited real well, got a lot of juniors through. You got Gus at the helm there, Cameron Serraldo's obviously the coach, and yourself as an experienced coach as an assistant, you've got the right tools there. It's just a matter of, I guess, the Bulldogs faithful being a bit patient and understanding it doesn't happen overnight.
Well, the fans have been fairly patient up until now as well, and they're very keen for some more results, and all the coaching staff and the players are very keen to give them results. And we've got a junior system that's slowly coming together as well, which is going to sort of blossom into some NRL players, and it took a little time for Penrith. It'll take a little bit of time for the Bulldogs as well, and it's not the finished product yet, and I'm sure Cam and Gus have got plenty in store.
Talk about your career, buddy. You started off at the Bulldogs in '83. You were there for 5 years. You move on to St George. 6 years, sorry. I apologise. You move on to St George, play a couple of years there, and then retire. And then you come out of retirement to go play for the Western Reds, mate. How did that come about?
Well, I actually was at school at St Greg's with Peter Mulholland, and he was floating around in reserve reserve grade, coaching reserve grade, and he got the gig at the Perth Reds or the Western Reds, and I'd kept in touch with him all through my career, and he said you shouldn't retire. You should. When I was retiring, I was just over it and just had enough of just the whole cycle. It was just getting a little bit too much. And he said, you shouldn't retire, So, but I did, and probably could have gone another year or two, but I thought it was going to be too many anyway. And in the end, I finished up coming back in '95, and with him at the helm at the Western Reds over in Perth, he got the head coaching job and wanted me to go over just as a senior player and try and keep control of the guys like Mark Geyer and quite a few other rebels that were over there, and try and temper their enthusiasm for a good time. And they were great guys, some great guys over there.
I've got an interview with Julian O'Neill the next couple of days as well, and he would have been one of those guys that you would have had to sort of.
He was his own person, Julian O'Neill. He's a great footy player, but just very, very loose off the field, and just funny, but just in the end over the top. It was just too much.
I mean, I've had to talk with a few of the guys from the Western Reds. Mark Geyer, as you mentioned, Sean Devine. I've had a few interviews with a few different guys, and especially the guys that come from over east to play over here for the Reds. They love the fact that they were sort of kept out of the spotlight because obviously AFL being the dominant sport. Yeah. How did you find that being over here?
I found it refreshing. I found it good. I found it that you could go about your business without too much fuss, and I enjoyed being at the football when then that's where the footy fans were, but other than that you weren't bothered, and the media weren't at the club as much, and just trying to find news and just trying to find content for them to publish. And it was more just stories that were put out by the media department, not necessarily them trying to dig up dirt on whatever, or trying to get the coach sacked or a player sacked or some controversy that makes headlines. We just ran under the radar, and it was quite good. It was refreshing.
Because I've talked to Mark Geyer a few times, and whenever I usually talk to someone that's played for the Western Reds, he always asks me to ask them about the tour of South Africa.
It was an extraordinary trip. Just our first. There was a couple of guys that went over early to do a little bit of promotion, and we get to the hotel, and a few of the guys had bought firecrackers, and they're throwing them out the window. And it was like gunshots. It was like, we're just going, what have we got ourselves into? It was crazy. And then there was some shootings over there, and you're allowed to carry firearms over in South Africa. So it was just crazy. And you weren't allowed to go out unless you had a group of people. And then if you walked into a nightclub, there were signs on the door to surrender your weapons. So what weapons are you carrying to a nightclub? And then when you walk out drunk, do you collect your weapons? It was a different world. I was astounded at what you're allowed or not allowed to do, and just witnessing the poverty in the place was quite eye opening, and just people walking along the highway, just like literally there's probably 15 kilometres before the next town, and people were just walking along, just going, and then stopped at a shanty town, and we had to get in the bus very quickly before we got swamped, because we stopped just to try and hand out a few things, but it was just getting all too much, so we had to jump back on the bus, and it got a little bit scary, but yeah, it was just the poverty, just like literally a few kilometres out of Pretoria. It was there. It was just people trying to live as best they could. But yeah, good trip. I enjoyed the trip. It was a great experience.
The experience of, I guess, going over there, living your life in Australia, get to obviously tour New Zealand at times and England, and then go to South Africa where rugby league's not a huge sport. Rugby union is,
Yes.
and then experiencing all that sort of stuff too. It would have been absolutely harrowing of an experience for you though.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. And there was a couple of sites to see, like going to Safari Park and just being able to walk the streets and you walk into a shop and they're selling like elephant paws and elephant heads if you want to, and like there's you're just going, how are they, like leopard heads or lion heads, and just going, how do they do this? Like like just really in shops. It was like, yeah, and people trying to find jobs on the street, like just waving people into a parking lot. That was their job with a rag. You going, just trying to make a coin, and yeah, the food was another thing. The food was good, and, yeah, but you weren't allowed to eat out just in case you get something bad. It was a good it was a good trip, and I'm sure MG probably lived it up a little bit more than I did.
Yeah, he didn't actually talk much about it, but he asked me like through text message whenever I speak to someone from the Reds, he goes, "Yep, ask him at the South African tour." So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, that everyone would have a slightly different perspective, and yeah, just they were probably just things that come to mind for me from that tour. It was a great experience and a great bonding experience for the team that were sort of newly formed. And yeah, we played a couple of games over there yeah, we we got to know one another there. It was a good trip.
you finish your career at the Reds '96, mate. You end up with just cracking that 200 mark for New South Wales Rugby League at the time, or ARL as well.
Yep.
When you look back on your career, I mean, because you also represented New South Wales country and New South Wales. Um,
Yep.
when you look back on your career, is there a piece of advice that you've taken from? It might not have been a coach, but someone that has stuck with you through your life and your career as a coach and a father and a husband?
Yeah, it was probably do more than expected and just try your best, like all the time. So just if you want to maximize your potential in life, is do your best, and I think some people have got more in them than what they expect of themselves. They don't know till they go right to the cliff, and you actually can push yourself a little bit further, and you find your best is further than you think it is. And I didn't expect to be able to play 200 NRL games, or 200 first grade games as it was then, and but I just kept going. I just kept pushing myself. I'm not sure whether I could have done any better, but I'd like to think not. But maybe I could have. But I thought I just pushed myself as much as I could, and probably lacked that little bit of confidence and didn't think I was good enough. But just made sure I maximised my effort and maximised my learning all the time.
So, you're saying that you sort of doubted yourself that whether you were good enough, but to play 200 games, represent New South Wales country and New South Wales, it's not an easy job to do. To get to one NRL game or first grade game is an achievement. So to play 200 and get to represent New South Wales and New South Wales country, that's a huge achievement. And I think like myself, looking at that sort of stuff, like I'd look back on my career and if I had that sort of resume and go, wow, I had a huge career and I got the best out of what like for me personally, I didn't get to see much of your games, but um, so I can't comment on your skill level or anything like that. But like for myself, I'm not I wasn't the best skilled person. I was pretty simple, but I would have taken that was my best skills was pushing myself, and the hard work pays off because you got to get those couple of representative games and all that sort of stuff, and play 200 first grade games as well.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. I didn't think I was good enough to play first grade early on, and let alone represent the state. It's a case of just keep working at those little things and the fundamentals, and I if you look at the game as when I played in the 80s and 90s, was in the 80s had a 5 metre rule, and the 90s had a 10 metre rule, and there was a ball change, and I don't think people understand fully the ball change made such a difference to the game and how it changed the game, let alone the 10 metre rule. The change of the ball just made the skill level of players to be able to just expand out, just so much, because you could actually carry the ball one-handed, and you could offload the ball one-handed. You could flick the ball out one-handed. You could roll it around a player and throw it. You could pull it out and lift it up over your head and just throw it. But you could just grip it and wave it around. And you couldn't do that with a leather ball. The game completely changed your tackle tech. The game completely changed the way you could carry the footy. And all of a sudden, you needed 2 and 3 people in the tackle to stop a player because of the offload ability that the player had, let alone them getting bigger, stronger, faster, and all that sort of stuff. There was the ball change, and it changes the contact, so you could tackle low and one could tackle high. But now, when the ball changed, everyone started tackling. Both of them tackled high because they were so worried about offloads. And then I had a third guy coming in to chop the legs away. So there was a massive change. So a few. Sorry,
I was going to say the leather ball got heavier as well when it was wet, so it was harder to kick, harder to pass, all that sort of stuff.
Well, try catching it. It was like catching a wet brick, a slippery brick when it come down. When it was all wet after 3 grades had played with the same 3 leather balls. There was only 3 of them, and they all got soaking wet. And by the grade number 3, which they played 3rd grade, reserve grade, and then 1st grade, and you're playing with the same balls, and they were just so heavy by the end of the day that that you literally had to soften the catch. It was like catching a brick foot coming down at you. Only it was slippery and wet, and so the ball that ball change has just been so significant, and changed the game, changed the way you played.
And in the 80s to the 90s, and then to the 2000s, 2010s, that you would have seen that change. Not just with the ball, but the rules, the players, all this sort of stuff. How has that sort of you watching all these changes impacted your coaching career? Like, we'll jump into the teams that you coach, but how is that? Seeing all that change over the 3-4 decades now of.
You're making me sound old.
Don't worry, I feel old myself, mate. So don't stress about that. But seeing that change of play, the change of the personnel, how has that come into your coaching?
Well, it's more focused on fundamental skill and being able to get your technique right, and just whether it's a tackle tech or whether it's grip, whether it's pass, and there's so many facets of that, is to understand that and to do it in a slow environment, and then speed it up as we progress through the grades and through the the off season, if you like. And you're always going back to similar sort of things with fundamentals, but you can't. It becomes a thing of repetition. So, like good golfer. If you want to be a good golfer, you've got to swing the club 8,000 times before you with a certain club, and then you've got to do that with the other clubs as well. So the repetition and the passing, whether it's a standard sort of flat pass or whether it's a spiral pass or whatever pass you want to throw, you've got to do a heap of repetition. So doing reps all the time at different levels, whether it's a 2-meter pass to a 10-meter pass. And again, there's so much variation that you need to practice, and getting reps is so important. So getting tackle tech is so important. So whether or not you're working on your technique to hit in the middle, whether you're working on your technique to hit on the ball, and then the combinations of that, and it's repetition, just getting reps and making sure that you're ready to play whatever grade you're playing. And you shouldn't go away from repetition, and no matter what grade you're playing. So you shouldn't be working on fancy moves for the majority of your training. You should be working on your fundamentals. Majority of your training should be based around fundamentals.
That's what I try to focus on when I was coaching. Like I was coaching under 10s and under 11s the same year, and it was just the basic techniques, basic passing, basic catching, tackling, and we had one of the NRLWA people come down, and they were teaching the under 7s because they were just starting to learn the tackle, under 7s or under 8s, the tackle technique. And I took my under 10s and 11s over there, and I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing. It's about getting that fundamentals, and the more we do it, and I'd start out every training session or even the warm up before the game. It was, just doing those fundamentals of the tackling. So it becomes second nature to them in the game.
That's right. Yeah, and again, with the kids, you've got to have a game. You've got to have a game. Yeah. You've got to have some fun. They're there to have fun, but a certain amount of your training is just work a fundamental, and you can make a game out of a fundamental. It's not like you can't do that. And ultimately, you want the kids. You want to make them enjoy it. Otherwise, they won't come back. And we've got all the hybrid games of touch and tag. There's a bit of beach touch that's evolving now as well. So and beach tackle, I think, is evolving in the 5-a-side. But all those hybrid games are fundamentally rugby league without the massive, ridiculous contact that they have in the NRL. It's just phenomenal. Some of the contact, and it's I cringe at some of the contact. It's just so fierce. But some of the skill that they have on the back of some players is just out of the world. It just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We've seen that in the last couple of years, especially people like Reece Walsh, Kalen Ponga, Matt Burton with his bombs, Nathan Cleary. These sort of guys, the skills that they have. Just to name a few, makes these young kids go, holy crap! Well, that's what they want to idolize, and that's who they want to be. But to the guys like yourself, my old man, myself, watch these, you just go, wow, the skills have evolved so much in the last 10, 20 years that, and even before that, obviously, that the game's come so far.
It has. It's again for those players that you mentioned is that they just haven't been naturally gifted rugby league players. Nathan Cleary has plied his trade for so long, and ever since he was probably a young man, just at 18, he's worked his way through, and his repertoire was always the last to leave training. He was always working on his trade, and that comes with repetition, and same with Matt Burton and some of those other star-studded players. You might have the one or two gifted athletes that sneak their way through that just might have something special that they haven't worked on. They've just been naturally fast or naturally big and just been good athletes and happen to be good at the trade and carting the ball forward. But most of those guys have had to adhere to some sort of fundamental practice.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I want to jump into your coaching career, mate, because I was reading up on it. You had a hell of a coaching career. I remember watching you at the Bulldogs and the Tigers coaching. Sorry, it was more the Tigers, obviously. Knew that you were an assistant at the Bulldogs for the last couple of years. But you started off coaching first grade over in Catalans,
Yes,
in the south of France. You go to St. Helens and then Bradford, and then you've come all the way back to Australia. How did you find going from the Australian system over here with the different players and the style of play to coaching over in France in the Super League competition?
Well, I don't want to be a broken record, but I found I had to go back to more fundamentals because all the Frenchies hadn't done enough reps to understand what you needed to do. So we nearly went back to basic tackling technique to stop them tackling around the head all the time, and it was a little bit strange. And what I did, we had eight imports, Australian players. So it was like guys like Stacey Jones and Alex Chan and that. So they were nearly my assistant coaches at times to try and help some of the French get up to speed on what they needed to do. And yeah, so the language barrier was another little hurdle we'd have, because all the French players that were there had varying English abilities in the English language. So there was some that could speak both languages, some had barely any, and so there was always a translation. So that made it a little bit more difficult and a little bit more long-winded for everyone. But everyone understood we were a new club and just forming up, and it was a great experience. I really loved it, and the culture over in France is probably a lot more laid back in professional sport than what I would have thought. They wanted 2 hours off for lunch. So as far as, just have a siesta and, just go, we've got half an hour. It was a strange place as far as, just again, adapting to their culture, because we're in their country. We needed to work in, and it was challenging but really satisfying. I did enjoy it, but was challenging at times.
And then, like I said, you go up to St. Helens, coach them for 2 seasons, and Bradford for a couple of seasons as well. You go from the south of France, where it's pretty warm, up to the cold of England. How was that?
I was going to stay in Catalans for another 3 years, but an offer come in from St. Helens to get me across there, because I'd work with some the French guys, and they thought I could work with some of the younger English players to help bring them through, and their club didn't want to spend any more money on imports, heavy imports coming from Australia. So I thought, if I stay here for another 3 years, I thought, because we had fairly good progression over those 3 years, and I thought, well, if I stay here, I think the only way here is down. Maybe I should move on, and so I went across to St. Helens and had the opportunity over there, and we made a couple of grand finals. Unfortunately, didn't get the result we wanted. But I really enjoyed working there. But the weather, and I think I've said it this week at some stage. I said I will never complain about the hot weather. I will never complain about how hot Australia is, because it's so cold over there.
Yeah,
in the north of England, it is very. It's all built for it, but as soon as you get outside and you've got to train, your pre-season is in the winter time, and so you have to try and get outside. It is really tough, and that really could test my mentality as far as just if it was too cold, there's no way you want to go outside it was hard. I found that the hardest thing was the weather, and you always had to have a plan B because sometimes you couldn't get outside.
I know that you've got some more stuff to do, work stuff to do, so I'll just jump in a couple more questions, mate. Just want to talk about Perth. And there's a heap to talk about with 18th team going to Papua New Guinea. Perth's obviously in the last couple of teams that have been thrown up there. Perth's always in discussion, but never really given a serious thought. Where do you sit on Perth being put back into the NRL?
Well, I think Perth and Adelaide should be the next ones in, and just geographically it probably is a bit tough, but the West Coast Eagles and Fremantle do it every second week. So to make it a national sport, I think Perth needs to be in there, and just the people over there. There wasn't there wasn't sort of 100,000 people supporting the game, but certainly there was enough. There was enough. I think we averaged 11,000 people in our first year back in '95. Our average crowd was 11,000. I thought that was sensational, and if you get 10% of the population over there supporting rugby league, and I'm sure there's some expats from England, some from New Zealand, from South Africa, from the East Coast, they're going to support the game. They're going to support the Western Reds or Perth Reds or whatever they're going to be called if they get a start. And it's a great place. I just people from here love going to Perth, and you would get tourism would lift. I would have thought, and all the speckies coming over to watch. And we had that over in Catalans in France. We had a lot of the English coming over to France to spend the weekend there because they wanted to get away. Who wouldn't want to get away from the north of England? To go, but Perth's the same. Perth's a lovely spot. It's just the weather we had over there in those few years I was there it was phenomenal. It was just great weather. It seemed like blue sky every day, and a little bit of a westerly wind blowing occasionally, but it was just great. So I just can't see how they would not put Perth as the number one ticket holder for the next expansion. But again, it's out of my pay grade. And, I've certainly been an advocate for Perth to be coming into the NRL, and you've got the facilities, you've got the population, and we just need some people, some business people, I suppose, to support the game there and to really get behind them. And even back in the '90s, we had some real good support there. And unfortunately, in the Super League War, they were one that got cut loose. And I think that's a bad thing for rugby league and what they're trying to do. And I think it's not too far away. I'd love to think they'd be the next on the list.
I know there's heaps of support over here for it. We've had the two Origins over here, which has sold out 60,000 fans at Optus Stadium, which is an oval, not a rectangle one. Last year we had the double header of Dolphins, Rabbitohs, and Sharks, and that over here, and it was 48,500 people that turned up to the game.
Yeah, there's rugby league supporters there, isn't there? You've got them there. Imagine if they had their own team.
Exactly. I was walking around. I was wearing my Bronco stuff, and you got every representation of every team there. Like I seen like old school St George Dragons ones. Balmain jerseys, Auckland Warriors. Not the New Zealand Warriors, Auckland Warriors. It was just the Western Reds teams, the Adelaide Ramps, like all the teams were represented, and it was so great to see. North Sydney Bears, another one. That was another part of my question I wanted to ask is, what do you think of Perth joining with North Sydney Bears? Or I know that Newtown came out was it last year and said if North Sydney don't want to join with Perth, then they will. What are your thoughts on those two possibly joining up with the Perth to help their bid?
Well, I'm not sure. Not I. I think that those small suburban clubs in the inner city are probably just in the end you get squeezed, and I just think Perth should just be doing it on their own. It should be Perth, whatever you want to call yourself. You can call yourself the Bears or the Jets, but in the end, it's got to be a Perth team. It should be a Perth team, and on your own merits, and you don't need the legacy of an old club to be successful. So you come in your own right, and we go from strength to strength as they've done with the West Coast Eagles and Fremantle, and just be your own team and be your own entity, and you'll leave a legacy, and it'll be part of rugby league folklore in the future at some stage where Jamie Davey helped get the Perth Reds or whatever back in the comp.
Oh, mate, that'd be great. I'm not doing it for the recognition, but it'd be great to see the Perth team over here. Like, I've got kids that play, so I just want to see a future for them, and I want to be able to take them to a game on the weekend, like every second weekend, and watch a footy game.
Yeah,
I can't stand watching AFL, so I don't even attempt to go to that. So, but yeah, I just one last question for you, mate. Have you got any advice for the people over here, or not advice? Sorry, a message for the people over here in Perth, whether it be the Perth supporters or the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldog supporters. Have you got a message for everyone over here?
Just for the Perth people, I just get behind your team and support them to the nth degree, and whatever the club's doing is just back them, and just become a member and offer your support, and just buy a ticket every week when they're over there, and occasionally fly over the East Coast, I suppose, and just enjoy your footy and just be a real supporter. And there's nothing better than banter between clubs about their club and your club, and just have some fun with it. And just it goes through generations, and might as well start now with Perth, and 2030 you have some other young kids wanting to have the idols and some role models for them to live up to, and they're actually Perth players.
Well, I'll leave it there for you, Mick. I know, like I said, you got a lot of stuff to do for the Bulldogs, some more coaching stuff tonight. So I know it's late over there. I do appreciate you giving me your time this late at night over there, mate. But Mick Potter, thank you for joining me on NRL Fans WA.
No problems. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, mate.
Bye.